of the blue-white devotion deck, but I am also a bigger fan of just the more normalized, just mono blue strategy. I know that Sam Black is a huge fan of, and as Osip and I talked about, Sam did go 8-0 in the standard portion of the Invitational.
Yeah, overall, I am a fan of just playing the straight blue version, though I do think the blue-white version has a little more game against builds with Pack Rat, because Pack Rat is so heinous for the mono blue build.
Yeah. Now, of course, Neighbor's version of this black-white deck, and we've seen various versions of this, he does have 4 copies of Pack Rat in his main deck, and Harrison will know that since he does have access to the deck list. But it looks like Neighbors is going to send it back, so Harrison is going to take a look at his opening hand, see if he likes the 7 that he sees.
And even no matter how much Jacob mulligans, if Travis lacks Detention Sphere, Pack Rat can get him out of the game, even as low as 4 cards.
Yeah, we saw that. We actually saw that yesterday. Michael Braverman getting the job done with a Pack Rat against the blue-white devotion deck where they just didn't draw Detention Sphere. You know, Detention Sphere obviously gives you outs to the card, but if you don't draw it, then it doesn't really matter.
Correct.
Yeah. So Neighbor's going to take at least 1 mulligan here in the finals. Again, he will be on the play here momentarily.
And that's not the only thing that Travis has to concern himself with. Just a plethora of removal spells and some big finishers like Blood Baron, Obsidat, and Elspeth is not a bad recipe against blue decks either.
This is true. This is true. And there are a couple copies of those cards running around. 3 copies of Blood Baron and 2 copies of Obsidat in Neighbors' deck. He's a control deck in this matchup. He's just looking to go long and not get beaten down.
Yeah, so Pack Rat is the easiest way for Jacob to win, but by no means the only way.
Looks like we've got our player meeting for the Legacy Open about to start here as well. So we'll see how many players we do have in that tournament. Once we do get a final number, we'll let you guys know exactly how many people and how many rounds we'll be seeing later today.
I'm going to predict a 9-rounder.
It oftentimes is that nowadays. We've fired a couple 10-round Legacy Opens, so it'd be sweet if we do that. As here is a Temple of Silence to begin the finals. Top card going to the bottom here for Jacob Neighbors. Can't get a great look.
Yeah, it looks like he has a Lifebane Zombie in his hand. There's 1 copy in his main deck. An Underworld Connection, some lands.
Harrison going to take a draw step here. It's a Judge's Familiar. He's going to play an island, and he will play the 1/1 flyer. Over to Neighbors we go.
And Judge's Familiar actually, against black decks and black-white, is where it's at its best, or not necessarily at its best, but one of the better matches for it as it's playing Hero's Downfall. A lot of 2-mana removal spells, so Judge's Familiar can actually be a pretty important tempo play.
This is Nyland. Going to follow this up. Looks like with a Frostburn Weird. So a nice start here for Harrison. He's going to attack for 1. Going to put Neighbors down to 19.
Travis seems very passionate about this deck, all foil everything.
Yeah. It is a nicer version, as Neighbors is going to take a draw. He does draw a copy of Hero's Downfall. This Gala Shrine is going to come into play. Neighbors is going to go down to 17. See if he wants to cast maybe an Underworld Connections this turn. He's going to play Lifebane Zombie. Let's get a look at what Travis Harrison is working with.
Now, even though Travis's deck is purportedly mono blue or close to it, there are Judge's Familiars and a copy of Afara, God of Paulus in the deck. So it's not impossible for Lifebane Zombie to hit something.
Not going to anything this go around. You see an Island, a Hallowed Fountain, a Master of Waves, a Prognostic Sphinx, and a Detention Sphere. So a very, very nice hand here for Travis.
Yeah, access to white mana and Detention Sphere, Master of Waves, although unlikely to get the job done against black-white mid-range because there's so many removal spells, not impossible. And Prognostic Sphinx actually has the potential to be fairly annoying this game against Jacob's removal-heavy deck if the game goes long enough.
Tidebinder remains the draw here for Travis. So we'll see exactly what he wants to do on this turn. Could play Hallowed Fountain untapped. Could play just an island, play the Mage, and then pump up the Frostmourne. He's got a couple options at his hand. He's going to play Hallowed Fountain tapped. Going to follow that up here. Looks like with the Tidebinder Mage, and then come across for 2 points of damage. So Harrison is going to stay at 20, and Neighbors are going to drop down to 15.
Tidebinder Mage not at its best here, of course, but it does fill out Travis's draw. Now he has something to do on turn 4 with all of his mana, and potentially turn 5 as well if he finds a 5th mana.
Yeah. Harrison going to pass it on back over to Neighbors, who will untap those 3 lands. He'll take a draw here. Again, he's got a couple copies of Underworld Connections in his hand. A card that's not at its best in this matchup. Certainly better when the board's a little bit more stable, but given the situation right now that Neighbors is in, not the best place to be.
Pretty rough for Jacob to take a turn off at this point. I mean, he is a bit behind the gun. He may not have anything else to do this turn, but this is big-time trouble.
Yeah, and he does not have anything else to do this turn, so he will just play Underworld Connections on his Godless Shrine and pass the turn back over to Harrison, who will draw a card.
And it's possible this implies that Jacob is without removal, or at least his removal spell is Hero's Downfall, that he doesn't want to cast into the face of this Judge's Familiar. So there's some chance that Master of Waves could actually run away with this game. Very uncommon against black-based removal decks, of course. They have no end of Hero's Downfall, Doomblade, Bioblight type effects, but this may be one of those rare games where Master of Waves gets it done.
And it looks like Harrison's going to play that 4th land very quickly, and now he's coming into the red zone. So Lifebane Zombie, I think, would predictably trade here with the Tideminder Mage. The thumbs up is given by Harrison. There's your trade. 2 damage is going to come across there. Neighbors is going to go down to 13. And now it looks like we are going to see the Master of Waves after combat. A little bit of a misstep there. Could have played that pre-combat for more devotion.
Yeah, it seemed like there was nothing that was going to happen there in combat that was going to change whether or not Travis played Master of Waves this turn, so probably should have just played it before combat.
Neighbors will take a draw, obviously under the gun here. Needs some sort of non-Hero's Downfall removal spell. As this could be, we might be looking at least on the next turn. You've got 8 from the Elementals, 2 from the Master itself. That's 10, 11 from the Frostborn, 12 from the Judge's Familiar, and just 1 pump. And Neighbors is going to pick up his cards, realizing he cannot get the job done. Travis Harrison is going to win game number 1 here over Jacob Neighbors. Blue-White Devotion up a game over Black-White mid-range.
Yeah, very curious game there, and Judge's Familiar playing a key role. Jacob drew back-to-back Hero's Downfalls that game.
Yep.
It's possible if Judge's Familiar isn't in the equation there, that he can kill the Master of Waves and then kills something else the next game, next turn, and then it's basically racing Prognostic Sphinx versus whatever threats that he can deploy. But Judge's Familiar basically blanked 2 copies of Hero's Downfall that game, and that was enough for Travis to take the first game.
We're going to bring it back to the booth here, my friends, because it is trivia time. The rules are simple. Get your Twitters ready. Hashtag at SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live so we can get the prize over to you. This guy to my left is going to ask you a question, and we'll announce the winner at the conclusion of our finals match here between Travis Harrison and Jacob Neighbors. The winner, full year of Star City Games Premium. So Twitter, hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live. Mr. Sullivan, take it away.
So Jacob Neighbors' black-white mid-range deck has a variety of creatures in it, some 4 of, some 3 of, some 2 of. There is one singleton creature in his main deck.
Okay.
Name the creature he is playing 1 copy of in his main deck.
And if you could name that singleton creature again, make sure you're following at SCG Live and hashtag your answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium on the Twitter sphere. As we're going to go back to the match, we'll take a look at the sideboards here. You have Jacob Neighbors in front of you, so you can begin.
All right. Jacob has the ability to go up to 4 copies of Lifebane Zombie with a 3 in his board, 2 copies of Citizen Collector, an Underworld Connections, a Bioblight, 3 Doomblades, a Whip of Erebos, 2 Duresses, and 2 copies of Revoke Existence. I think that certainly Jacob wants the additional removal spells in Bioblight and 3 copies of Doomblade. I think he wants Revoke Existence as well. Revoke Existence is pretty reasonable against Mono Blue Devotion, as there's cards like Thassa and Binding of Thassa. It's particularly good against the Blue-White Devotion builds, as they're also playing Afara and Detention Sphere. Detention Sphere being Travis's only reasonable answer to Pack Rat. So I imagine those cards are going to be coming in. I know that some people like to take a damage rates approach to the black versus blue matchup. I know that Owen Turnwall is an advocate of that, for example, but I think the black-white mid-range deck probably plays too many comes into play tapped lands and too many Ravnica tools to really execute that plan with the same efficiency that the mono black build can. So I would anticipate Jacob just becoming more of a removal and heavy hitters deck in the post-board games.
You see Harrison sideboard of 2 Domestications, a Pacifism, a Cyclonic Rift, 2 Gainstays, 1 Negate, 1 Rapid Hybridization, 1 Riot Control, 1 Biden of Thassa, an additional Afara, God of the Polis, 1 Jace Architect of Thought, a Glare of Heresy, and 2 Revoke Existence. A lot of options here for Travis. Of these, I do like Afara because this game is going to go a little bit longer. I'm actually okay with Jace as well. Rapid Hybridization is okay, especially when you know he's going to be playing against Pack Rat and friends. So some really nice targets there. You can make an argument for Negate as well to be kind of one of these time removal spells. And of course, the Biden when you're playing against black-based removal. You got to love that card.
Yeah, Travis may want to go into a slightly slower, more attrition-oriented game plan in the post-board games. It is risky because Jacob does have a lot of really powerful cards that he himself can get to and invalidate a lot of Travis's card drawing, whether it's Laverne of Viskova or Obsidian or Elspeth. So these are tools not afforded to mono black devotion lists that might change exactly how slow and attrition-oriented Travis wants to get. There's also an argument for potentially bringing in Pacifism. Not very good against Jacob's creature base at large, but good against Desecration Demon, which is one of the most problematic creatures for the blue-white devotion list outside of Pack Rat.
Sure. So we'll see how both these players do sideboard. There are a lot of options afforded to them. You see a bunch of singletons and dual cards over there for Travis. And then, you know, a little more traditional sideboard there for Jacob Neighbors. But again, both players a lot of options. And for Jacob, I think the goal here is to hit your land drops.
Hit your land drops and don't die.
Yes.
That's it. If he can get to 5 and 6 mana, the power level of his mythic creatures and planeswalkers are going to carry the day.
Yeah.
It's just the first couple turns that are a harrowing ordeal, and if he misses his land drops, then of course that magnifies the problem.
Yeah, it'll make things a little more difficult, but we'll see what ends up happening here between the two players. Don't forget, of course, we'll be announcing our winner at the conclusion of this match for the 12-month premium giveaway. We'll also be doing our winner's interview in the sideboard. And then we'll be taking a short little break. We'll come back at 11:30 to begin our invitational coverage. Legacy top 8, best 3 out of 5 all the way around. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. As we have been notified, our Legacy Open, our players meeting going on behind us. 385 players there, so we'll be rocking and rolling with 9 rounds of Magic.
Yeah, and you can hear the players meeting going on in the background right now. There's some laughter in the feature match area as I believe Ric Flair's theme music was playing, and there was some wooing going on.
That is accurate. That is accurate. We are in Nature Boy country.
We are Charlotte, North Carolina.
This is his home of the Nature Boy.
A source of constant inspiration for yours truly.
See, Patrick's going to control himself. He's got a mean woo over there.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of practice.
Yeah, I don't want to bust it out in the risk of piercing anyone's hearing out there, but I do have a mean woo.
So again, Travis Harrison, he does win game number 1, Blue-White Devotion, up a game over Jacob Neighbors and his Black-White mid-range deck. Black-White mid-range, probably the more popular of the two decks. Blue-White Devotion still trying to get some footing in a standard format. We have seen some results from this deck thus far, but nothing as notable as what Black-White mid-range has done to the format.
Yeah, certainly. Well, there's so many powerful Orzhov cards to pull from, whether it's Blood Baron or Obsidat, or just the powerful white creatures cards you can splash. The Blue-White Devotion list, you know, you're looking at basically Detention Sphere as the big payout, and there's a much larger opportunity cost for a tempo-based deck like Blue Devotion to be playing off-color cards and comes into play tap lands. A lot of Mono Black Devotion lists are already playing some number of temples. So the opportunity cost of adding Godless Shrines and, you know, your 4 black-white temples to this deck is fairly low because you're already doing some amount of that stuff to begin with. And the power level of the 5-drops is really high.
Yeah, Blood Baron and Obsidat, both incredibly good cards. You can, you know, kind of tailor your deck to beat one thing with Obsidat or tailor your deck to beat another with Blood Baron. So gives the deck a lot of options, of course. There is a cost with these dual lands, of course. You know, the lands coming into play tapped. You know, you're going to have to stagger your drops sometimes. There will be times when you need to cast that Elspeth on turn 6, you need to draw a land, and you end up drawing an Orzhov Guildgate, which is easily one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yeah, and to me the biggest incentive about playing black-white mid-range instead of mono-black is the 5-drops. Great Merchant of Asphodel is very powerful in Black Beerus, but it's actually a pretty incongruous piece in a lot of matchups, kind of disconnected from what's going on in the game. When you get to replace those cards with Blood Baron and Obsidat, which are very powerful in a general sense, and certain decks just can't beat either one of those cards outright. You know, Mizzy Mortar's decks often can't beat Obsidat, and certainly Black-White strategies struggle with Blood Baron.
Yeah.
Upgrading that 5-drop slot is the biggest incentive to play the deck.
Neighbor's going to be on the play here. He'll take a look at his opening hand. He did have to mulligan the last game. We'll see if he's able to keep this one. You see Harrison going to take a look at his as well. He did keep his 7 the last go around and gave a crushing defeat with Master of Waves.
Just land drops. That's the critical piece here.
Yep. That's the tech.
Land drops into removal into a threat.
Both players keep their hands. We're going to see an Orzhov Guildgate here for Neighbors. And we are underway here in game number 2. You see a Judge's Familiar there over in Travis Harrison's hand.
And you can see the cost here of playing Blue-White Devotion. 2 copies of Temple and Enlightenment in Travis's hand. He's trying to figure out right now, how does he want to sequence it? Does he give up on Judge's Familiar on turn 3? Does he try to give up on potentially playing Thassa on turn 3? Whatever the case may be, he's paying a cost somewhere along the line.
Going to lead off with the Judge's Familiar. This is a Mutavault. Let's see if this is a pack rat, and it is. So going to be put to the test right away. Well, Travis Harrison.
So unlike the Blue Devotion list, that is essentially just racing at this point or potentially playing Rapid Hybridization, which is an awkward trade, Travis does have a very easy clean out in his list in Detention Sphere.
Temple of Lightman's going to put the top card to the bottom. And we'll see if Harrison's going to swing across here for 1 or not.
Well, not a whole lot of point in blocking right now.
Yep. Defense is probably not the place to be. Well, we will see momentarily what he does want to do.
Now, the plan here is a little bit riskier for Jacob again, now knowing that he's playing against Blue-White Devotion. You know, before and against just Mono Blue, you could play your third land, start pack ratting, and probably take the game over this way. But now he has to actually think of, is it worth the risk of Detention Sphere? And if I believe it's worth the risk, what's my backup plan in the case that I lose my pack rat to Detention Sphere?
Sure. Here's an attack for 1. No activation of the pack rat, so that to me is a little bit telling that he's not interested in maybe moving in on that this game.
Well, it's possible that his plan is something along the lines of, I'm willing to give up 1 point of damage to hedge a little bit against Detention Sphere. Maybe he's more interested in making rats at the end of Travis's turn. He gives up a little bit of damage, but he gets to keep an extra card in hand in the event that Travis does have Detention Sphere. And Travis can't wait all day long. He is compelled to Detention Sphere kind of as soon as he can.
That's true.
So I like this pacing from Jacob.
Thassa going to come into play after an attack here from 1. Neighbor's going to go down to 18. Pack rat looks like it may be active here, and it is. Going to discard a Bloodbearer of Escopus. So the rats are 2/2s now. Mutavault can make them 3/3s. We'll see exactly what road Mr. Neighbors is going to go down here. Take an untap, take a draw.
Now,
looks like he may have picked up a Thoughtseize, I believe.
And the Thoughtseize is a pretty interesting card in here because, you know, in some respects the game could be about damage racing, and he's just better served ignoring something like that and simply discarding it to pack rat. But also the information about whether or not Detention Sphere is looming in Travis's hand is very valuable to Jacob right now. So I'm curious to see what he wants to do with this Thoughtseize.
Provoking Resistance is going to take care of Thassa. And Neighbor's just going to pass the turn back here, so no interest in casting that just yet. This is a Temple of Enlightenment. Top card is going to go to the bottom, it looks like. And it will.
And Travis is acting very quickly here with these scries, which to me means that he does not have Detention Sphere at the ready.
Yeah.
And that is what he is looking for.
And that's a Frostburn Weird. And this is an attack for 1, so Neighbors are going to go down, we believe, to 17. Well, it actually says, you know what, I'm going to cast a Devour Flesh, targeting you. Interesting here on the timing. It does let the Frostborn resolve, and so basically what this does is Judge's Familiar will bite the dust. See if Harrison did sacrifice that, or if he's just going to pay 1. Like if he sacrificed it to make Neighbors try to pay 1 or gain a life.
Imagine you just stuck the Judge's Familiar there because you gain a life.
Yeah, his motioning was a little bit strange. Now we're going to see that Thoughtseize. Here's a hand of Cloudfin Raptor, a couple copies of Nightfield Spectre, and Prognostic Sphinx.
Well, the coast is clear for pack rat as things stand, but it is a matter of time here as well. Travis can chump block and try to manage the board in such a way that he doesn't die right away.
In come the 2/2s. Frostmourne going to get in front of 1. So 2 damage will come across. And Neighbor's just going to pass the turn back. Very conservative approach.
Yeah, there was a path there where Jacob could have potentially attacked with his pack rats first, because Frostburn Weird would not have been able to block in the face of the threat of pack rat being activated and Mutavault being activated. But I think Jacob just wanted the information up front about whether or not he had to play around Detention Sphere before proceeding with his turn.
Detention Sphere was the draw here for Travis Harrison. So this conservative approach looks like it's going to be working out here for Neighbors, as he's going to take 1 from the Weird. Harrison does have those pack rats on lockdown, so not moving in here looks like it may have been appropriate. Now, one of the things that Neighbors could have done, however, was, that Devour Flesh that he did have, he could have used that to actually take care of a Detention Sphere by targeting himself on whatever the Detention Sphere would have taken care of, instead opting to actually just use that on a Judge's Familiar. So there's your D-Sphere. And it looks like here go your pack rats.
Well, Jacob, I believe, does have BioBlight in hand, so he can still run the same play that you were describing before here. But that feels like a huge cost.
Well, I mean, the issue with that is obviously, like,
the
it's just going to kill all the rats. Yeah,
right.
And just going to pass the turn back. So Neighbors is going to take a draw. And he's already discarded a Blood Baron of a Scopa.
Looks like he's pretty flush with the removal spells here.
And that's a Desecration Demon, which, you know, in certain board states, that card's incredible against mono blue, but it doesn't look like we're really in that one. It's fine right now, but it isn't the dominant creature that it always is, as Harrison's going to take a draw.
Yeah, Jacob has a lot of life to play with, so
Yeah.
he might be able to squeeze out some value with this Desecration Demon. But again, keep in mind there is always the threat of another Detention Sphere. This is a spot where it's really pronounced in these spots, the difference between Blue-White Devotion and the mono-blue build. Even though I'm personally a fan of simply playing the mono-blue list, there's no denying in this matchup it's nice to have outs to some of these threats.
Yeah, you can really see exactly how powerful the white cards are. Not just Attention Sphere, but also Temple of Enlightenment, allowing you to scry and actually find the cards that you're looking for. His neighbor's just going to untap and take a draw here. Again, he has a copy of Bile-Blight in his hand. He knows that Harrison has another Nightveil Spectre in his hand, so it could be a little bit of 2-for-1 action here, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Travis is appears to be trying to build up a board at this point to try to push through the Desecration Demon. So he might be able to trap Travis because Travis is probably going to continue to commit to the board.
Desecration Demon trigger placed onto the stack. We'll see if Harrison wants to sacrifice anything, and if not, if Neighbors actually has any interest in attacking. And the answer is no, he does not. So Harrison's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. I believe he just picked up another copy of Detention Sphere, though I'm not positive.
Wow, that's a huge draw if it is.
Now I am positive. That's a Detention Sphere. Clearing the road. There goes the Deso Demon. Huge draw there, as you're going to see an attack now with the Frostburn Weird, and it looks like a Nightveil Spectre. And hey, even that Cloudfin Raptor is going to come in.
Yeah, and Jacob appears to have a lot of removal in hand, so he still has some tools to play with here, and he's not necessarily dead. But again, these Attention Spheres have been brutal in these games.
Bile-Blight looks like it's going to go targeting the Cloudfin Raptor, so that's going to bite the dust. Nightveil Spectre is actually going to be allowed to hit, along with the Frostmourne. The big question is, will Harrison pump? And it looks like he will, so it's going to be an attack for 4 total.
And if you're Travis right now, the red flags have got to be going off that he decided to kill your Cloudfin Raptor instead of your Nightveil Spectre.
Yeah, I would think so too.
I would be certain there was another copy of Bile-Blight looming since Jacob had information about his hand.
Neighbors will untap at 11 life. He will take a draw here. He's going to tap 2 mana. This might be a pack rat potentially. It is. So that's the third pack rat this game. One was already taken care of via Detention Sphere. The second one underneath the Nightveil Spectre. And the third one rolls off the top of Neighbor's deck. He'll just pass the turn back.
But Jacob definitely under the gun at this point.
Yes. In a big way.
Before, where the turn 2 pack rat would have been probably pretty easy to walk away with the game, it's less clear if this pack rat is going to be in time.
Harrison draws an island for the turn. So he's looking at a Nightveil Spectre in his hand. He's going to fire up a Mutavault.
Well, I like starting the turn just with combat. See what's going on.
Yeah, as do I.
Again, there's reason to suspect that there is another copy of Bile-Blight in Jacob's hand at this point.
And he does tap 2 mana, so he will go Bile-Blight in to take care of that Nightveil Spectre. So Mutavault and Frostmourne we're allowed to come across. We'll see if there are any pumps there with the Weird.
Don't act too surprised here, Travis.
Yeah. You see consulting his hand. He says, all right, that's fine. 3 damage looks good. Neighbor's going to go down to 8. Harrison making his way towards a standard open championship here in the driver's seat. Just got to get by 1 pack rat. You see Nightveil Spectre is going to come into play now too.
Yeah, by no means out of the woods, but things are looking good.
Neighbor's going to untap. He's going to take a draw. Again, he's got a pack rat. He just has a Thoughtseize in his hand, a mystery card. Among those lands is a Mutavault.
I think that Thoughtseize is about to become a rat.
I think you may be right about that. And we go to the red zone.
Whoa.
Going to discard here. Make a rat, discarding Lifebane Zombie. So his last card in hand is a Thoughtseize. Just passes the turn back.
Attacking seems fairly aggressive to me here, but I guess he's still... The pack rat with the Mutavault in play can be made into a 3/3, so it still shuts down Travis's Mutavault.
Yeah. And he might just be comfortable saying, okay, like if you attack with Frostmourne, I'll just put my rat in front, and that that makes you commit some of your mana too. As Tidebinder Mage comes rolling off the top.
Yeah, not an unreasonable line. And Jacob does need to actually race here.
Yeah.
This game going on long is not good for him, as he's likely to die in the air or by some mixture of tricks, or Travis finding another copy of Detention Sphere, what have you.
An attack for 2 in the air here from Harrison. Neighbor's going to go down to 6. There's pack rat number 4. Let's see what Harrison has in the follow-up. It will be that Tidebinder Mage. He's going to go reaching for some mana here. Cluttering up the board with another Frostburn Weird. So devotion count is high. Nothing to do with it just yet, but all it takes is one draw step.
And clutter is a really good word for it. What's also critical here is, assuming the Night Veil Spectre goes unchecked, it means both copies of Frostburn Weird are lethal next turn. So it might force Jacob to pump the brakes a little bit here too.
So Norzov Guildgate coming into play. Of course, Neighbors' last card in his hand is a Thoughtseize. He does have the ability to make a rat and activate a Mutavault if he deems fit.
Jacob's in this weird spot where blocking is not looking good for him, nor is attacking. So he's got to find some way to make attacks that keep Travis honest, while also ensuring that he doesn't die on the way back.
You see Neighbors just trying to figure out, all right, how can I get myself out of this sticky situation? Because things are not great for me right now. As you do see the troublesome rat here.
That dirty rat.
Yeah. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still pretty problematic, and have probably done a nice job of carrying Jacob Neighbors here to the finals. The question is, going to get him another win?
Certainly, if this was just a blue devotion deck, it would have gotten this game done almost certainly.
Boy, look at this attack. I thought he might swing in with both, just one. Very aggressive. Maybe trying to trick him a little bit here. You're going to discard a Thoughtseize. Going to pump a Mutavault too, so that'll be 4 damage that comes across.
The problem with this attack, I actually liked all of this up until the point where Jacob now made a rat, as he's now left himself dead on board. If Travis attacks with Night Veil Spectre and animates Mutavault, there's no way for Jacob to block here, as there's only 2 blockers, and any mixture of 2 creatures coming through unchecked is lethal on the ground on top of the Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, the question is, does Harrison see it? It's a very, very risky line of play here by Neighbors, just hoping he doesn't see the attack, and it's very clear that he does not. So, card going to come off the top here. That's his Temple of Silence. He will get to play that End Scry. See what the follow-up card is. It's a copy of Judge's Familiar. So again, just cluttering things up here is Harrison. Neighbors obviously taking an incredibly risky line there, but trying to give himself the best chance to win.
Yeah, and if he finds an answer to Night Veil Spectre, he's right back in this.
Yes.
He's got a commanding presence on the ground, and Travis is going to have to start chump blocking potentially this turn. Those rats have the potential to be 5/5, so at least 2 of them need to be blocked, or else Travis just simply dies.
Playing it rather safe with this attack.
And Travis is not compelled to chump block this.
Yeah, I mean, he can just use his life total as a resource and just get in here and just take this damage.
Right, and again, deck lists are public. He knows there's no risk of something like Grey Merchant.
See, Frostmourne is going to get its blocking on.
And if Jacob needs to make this rat a 5/5 to have it survive the Frostburn Weird, if Travis elected to pump, then that would mean the Mutavault would no longer be eligible to block.
Yep.
So even if Travis simply pumps the Frostburn Weird to a 4/1 right now, he gets a tremendous amount of value.
And it looks like he's going to do that. And so now these are just going to trade. Okay.
All right, that's fine for Travis.
Yeah.
That's fine. And again, Jacob can't animate the Mutavault to save it because then he dies on the way back.
Yeah. All right, so Harrison's going to untap. He's going to take a draw here. Again, he's got a Temple of Silence in play, so he can actually cast the Pack Rat. So he drew. It looks like he's reaching for his mana immediately.
Yeah, this might have been something big.
Yeah. Feels like potentially a Master of Waves means reaching for 4 mana. It's an Afara. He says, I'm actually not going to cast that just yet.
Might as well attack. He
Yeah.
may find something better to do with the mana off the top of Jacob's deck here. But Travis still has to be concerned about getting killed on the way back himself, too.
Yep.
The Zafara doesn't represent lethal this turn. It simply is a powerful card to put into play. Yeah, I'm personally a big fan here of simply attacking with Night Veil Spectre. Probably the judge is familiar as well. Send Jacob to 1. So that way, if either flyer survives into your next turn, you win the game. See if you find something good off the top of Jacob's deck. If that's great, cast it. If you do, that's great. You can cast it. If not, cast a Fara. Even cast the Pack Rat underneath the Night Veil Spectre. You draw a card that way.
Yeah.
If that's something you're in the market for.
Yeah, your line is exactly where I want to go. It's just attack with both the flyers, see what happens to the Night Veil Spectre, play a Fara, cast the Pack Rat, draw a card. I've got enough blockers. There's a Temple of Silence, so Harrison will get to scry again. Take a look at the top card. And I believe, because of the Devotion, Fara is going to be active too, so it can actually be a blocker.
Oh, keep in mind, Travis still has 2 detention spheres in play.
Yeah, they're a little crowded off to the side, yeah.
This Zafara is very stable right now. Something insane would have to happen for Travis to lose Devotion.
And now there's a Pack Rat. So you see the board there. A bunch of creatures on the ground to actually just block with. A Forest Trigger is going to happen on Neighbors' turn. He's going to get to draw a card. Will Harrison. Neighbors is going to untap. He'll take a draw. I'm not sure there's a draw that gets him out of this particular situation, but Neighbors was able to make it by a few turns ago with being dead on board. Now Mutavault's going to go active. Everyone's going to come to the red zone here, and assuming that Harrison is able to block appropriately, I think we're going to crown ourselves a standard open champion here.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a desperation alpha here, hoping that Travis essentially clicks through the blocker stage, to use some Magic Online parlance, but assuming Travis doesn't do anything disastrous here, he's going to be able to win the game the following turn.
So it looks like every creature will be blocked. You see the Judge's Familiar hanging out on defense. And there are your blocks.
This looks like a totally reasonable block to me.
Yeah, here's an activation of Pack Rat. So Rat's going to come into play. Afar obviously is not going to die. Tidebinder Mage is going to trade with the Mutavault. There goes that. Those creatures will die. And after the dust is going to settle here, just going to pass the turn back with 1 blocker here for Neighbors.
Yeah, there are degrees of dead on board, and now Jacob is incredibly dead on board.
He is, as Harrison will take a draw. That's a Master of Waves. This is an attack with a Night Veil Spectre, and that's an extension of the hand. Travis Harrison with Blue-White Devotion is your Star City Games Standard Open champion here in Charlotte.
Congratulations. This is really the first big tournament I feel like we've had for Blue-White Devotion.
This is the one.
It was hanging around on the fringes of the standard metagame, particularly when Board of the Gods just got released. We saw it in various open series. Michael Jacob was an advocate for the deck for a while. I feel like this is the first really big finish for the archetype, and especially as people are starting to transition more and more to mono blue devotion. I feel like people were experimenting with this deck. They didn't really like it very much, and now people are back to playing mono blue if they want to have that sort of archetype.
Yep.
This may open up the conversation again, as Travis won a very, very large standard open.